Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel, Tomcat Stitchery. I'm Whitney and today we are doing part 1 of my bamboo coat sewing progress, basically. So I kind of had mentioned in the beginning of the year video that I was going to kind of make January coat making month. It may actually spill over into February a little bit. But I thought what I would do, because I'm doing a whole bunch of different kinds of coats, some of them have similarities, and I'm also in the middle of a coat sew along, B6385. So if you're interested in actually learning a lot of the more intricate techniques, you could definitely head over to the sew along. It's not all out yet. So for instance, the bound buttonholes part 1 is out, but the second part of that's not out yet because we haven't gotten to that part of the coat yet, which is the facing side, which is where you do the windows. But anyway, that's a stand-up collared coat. So there's a few things that come with other tailored coats that coat just doesn't include. So I thought that it might be kind of fun if a few of these coats, if I just kind of took you along and shared progress with you. And I talked about my plans, when was that, Tuesday? I remember when videos go up. And yeah, so anyway, so we're going to focus on coats now, and then after we're done with coats, I'm going to focus on that Vogue pattern, the blouse pattern. That's going to be the next sew along, and we're going to do, I'm going to do the one pattern 3 ways, but I think I'm going to take it a step further and do a whole bunch of hacking in different ways where you can do like a completely different type of woven blouse, like where it's not even, doesn't even have a button placket. Take the collar off, that kind of stuff, just kind of really play around with it. Just getting more of a bang for your buck in a pattern, basically. And then we'll move on to maybe a pants pattern or a skirt pattern or something along those lines, because I thought I would do the module idea just with 3 patterns. So a top, this will be the top pattern, and then I'll do a bottoms pattern, and then we'll do a topper pattern that we can kind of also do a whole bunch of hacking with as well. So that's kind of my thought process with the channel moving forward. But today I have started working on the Waffle Patterns Bamboo Coat. Now, before we get started, I just want to say this pattern is drafted really well. I'm very impressed with it so far. Now, there's a few things that I changed a little bit, and I'm going to show you that here in just a second. I also opted to add shoulder pads, and I'm actually going to talk about that a little bit more in a second as well. So as of right now, and I keep looking at the coat, it's right behind the camera here, but I will flash footage of me kind of slowly giving you a look of it. I'm not going to hold it up just because it's currently setting on the mannequin. I've steamed the undercollar and the lapels in place, so they're setting. It's like setting your hair with hair rollers. But anyway, I have constructed the outside of the coat. I have pressed my hems up on the outside, on the bottom, as well as on the sleeves. Sleeves have been attached, of course. I've done all of the inside interfacing. I've done soft tailoring on this, and I'll talk a little bit more. I have done so this is different than the sew along coat because it has a revere or a notched lapel. So the revere is when it folds back on itself and then it's notched. It's not a shawl collar. So there's a little bit more tailoring that kind of goes into this one. Now, this isn't fully tailored. Like, I didn't put any horsehair canvas into the top of the coat to support that, mostly because I have a drapier wool. But I did decide to put in a shoulder pad and a sleeve head, which I'll be doing, not on this series, but you will see that on the actual sew along. If you are following along with that on Sundays, I actually show you how to put in a sleeve head and a shoulder pad, even if it doesn't call for one. So I haven't done that yet, but I will be doing that. And let's see, I decided to do my buttonholes. This pattern actually has a hidden button placket, but it does say that you can omit that if you'd like. I decided to omit it, and so, because I've got some really cool buttons that you'll see. Actually, I could show you. I'm gonna wait though, because that's gonna be part of my haul, my haul video. So my fabric, got a couple patterns and I got some buttons. Haul. But I really wanted to showcase those buttons, so I decided to do bound buttonholes as opposed to the hidden placket. So I did change that up a little bit, although she talks about that in the pattern. So today we're going to talk about just the shell of the coat, the fusible tailoring that I did to it, and then part 2, I'll just be kind of, let me know if there's anything else you would like to see in part 2, because I haven't, finished putting the coat together yet, although I'm probably going to finish it tomorrow. You won't see the part 2 video till Friday. But yeah, let me know, because again, I'm doing a whole bunch of coats. So if there's something I don't show that you would like to see, I can definitely do that. So just a highlight of note, if you are interested in doing bound buttonholes, again, I've already done that on the sew along, part 1 of that, which is all, it's the same part that I've done on this coat so far today, with the notch lapel, and I'll show you that up close. Basically, I've attached the undercollar to the back of the coat, but you leave the space, like you leave seam allowance room there from where the undercollar attaches to the lapel. So you do want to make sure that that you're following your notches. That's the most important thing when it comes to sewing a notched collar, is just you really have to follow those notches or those dots. And so I'll kind of show you that a little bit. Yeah, so before I go on, I'm gonna really quickly pause and take you over to the cutting table and show you where I applied interfacing, because I did change things up a little bit from the pattern. So yeah, we'll cut to that real quick. All right, so I'm gonna show you what I've done interfacing wise, although this coat pattern has been really great with that. So this is a good one to try. So again, this is the Bamboo Coat by Waffle Patterns, and the regular one. I'm making the longer length, and I'm actually omitting the hidden button placket just because I have some neat buttons I want to showcase, and I'm going to do bound button holes. But that's the only alteration I'm making to this jacket. So I just want to show you, when you print out this pattern, she has these dotted lines here for your interfacing guide. So I've gone through and traced all of these off. Now she has you just putting a strip of interfacing along the hemline of the sleeves, the front and the back. I just went ahead and drafted a 3.5 inch wide interfacing panel basically for all of those pieces. And again, anything, and I haven't looked at the instructions to be honest to see, she may recommend it, but I've also pinked the edges of anything that goes into the body of the coat. So like the top here of the interfacing on the hem, and then also where it goes into the body here at the top of the sleeve. So here's the sleeve, and it looks almost like a two-piece sleeve. It's a very interesting sleeve pattern. Just the way, when it all gets folded, it'll almost look like a two-piece sleeve. It'll just have the one seam allowance though. So there's the sleeve, and here's what it looks like. So I've got everything pinked. It's kind of hard to tell on the fabric, but it is nice and pinked. So I've got interfacing on the top of the sleeve and where it even curves under, and then here, the bottom of the hem. I've had a lot of questions about hems. If you're wanting nice crisp hems, that is the secret right there. Interfacing in your hems, it makes a huge difference. All right, so that's the sleeve. I also want to make note that I cut my, or not cut, but I mark everything that needs to be marked on the pattern after I have interfaced, because so much gets covered up by interfacing. I actually haven't done it on the back yet. But then the back, she has the interfacing guide here for a back stay, and then I added the interfacing here on the bottom. There's a couple of, we're going to miter these corners here at this vent, and she has a couple of guidelines. I've just not marked those in yet, nor have I marked my dart in yet on the back, but I'll do that soon. But I just wanted to show you, I've got my 3.5 inches interfaced here, pinked. Here at the vent, I did not pink the edge here because that's going to get folded back, and that'll just be nice and crisp when all is said and done. But my vent's been interfaced, and then obviously this back stay's been interfaced. Again, I've not marked my dart yet, nor have I marked my miter lines, but I will do that before I start sewing. We'll do the front of the coat last here. Let's see, my facings, it says in the instructions, you cut those out. Those are completely interfaced. I've used a medium weight Palmer Pletch. They're Profuse interfacing in black, obviously. But that's my favorite tailoring weight. It's tailored without being like too bulky, especially because this is kind of a drapier coating fabric. It's not like the Melton wool I used for my sister's coat. So, but these are completely interfaced. And then these smaller pieces, I'm doing the welt pockets. So I've got my welt pocket pieces. There's 2 of them. It's kind of like a little piece. So it's a welt pocket, but it's got not a flap, but a rectangle edge to it. So I've got both of those cut out, and they're both completely interfaced. My undercollar, there's a separate undercollar and top collar pattern. This is going to be a really good one, I think. Just the drafting, I think, on this is going to be pretty phenomenal. I'm excited to get sewing. But the undercollar gets cut on the bias. And I actually, when I cut it out, I cut out, 1/2, and then I just flipped the pattern piece over to cut out the second half so that it could be on the bias. You could also trace out a full piece if you wanted. But then she has on here your fold line guide. here on this is where the collar gets folded in on itself. And I just did this on, the fold line guide is also on the top collar pattern. I just did this on the under collar, but I cut out, and it's gonna be kind of hard to see, but I cut a piece of interfacing out that is this shape and then goes around the bottom. And this is on the straight of grain, because remember, this under collar is on the bias and the interfacing is also on the bias. And then this is on the straight of grain, and this is the fold line. So when this gets worn on the collar or on the coat, that will naturally want to fold back right where it's supposed to. So the under collar, I mean, obviously the under collar will be the back part of that. So it'll fold like that, but it'll do it like it wants to, right along that line, because we have that extra piece of interfacing there, just like the fold line in the front of the coat that I'm going to show you how to do that in a second. But yeah, this is all just speed tailoring fusibles. So there's the under collar pattern. Back facing, I also cut it out and then it got fused. If you want to attach a tag at this time, you want to put your tag on your back facing, go ahead and sew that on now. If you're wanting to do a loop on your coat, a hanging loop, which I actually hadn't thought about that, but I may put one in. You have two options. You can either put it up here where it connects to the collar, or you can put it down here where the facing connects to the lining. Sometimes that's down a little far. I usually like to put mine up here where this connects to the collar, but you can put a little, you know, a bias tape or twill tape or something there that you can hang, you know, that makes it easy to hang your coat up. I'm actually out of tags right now, so I can't sew a tag into my coat, but that's where you would do that now. I had questions about that. And then the top collar is done on the straight of grain, and it's been interfaced also on the straight of grain, completely interfaced. So those are all, well, not all the pieces. I actually haven't cut out my lining yet, but there are separate lining pieces for this entire coat, which is also, I mean, it's kind of laborious to cut out and tape together, but it's a separate file, and it is, I love when patterns do that. It just makes everything fit together so much better. Okay, so here are my coat fronts. So on my coat fronts, I have interfaced, and again, I followed her, you know, she's got an interfacing piece here for the top of the coat. I'm doing pocket A, which is the welt pocket, so I've interfaced that area. I'm doing bound buttonholes. This pattern actually, well, it says you can omit the hidden placket, but there's actually a hidden button placket that you can sew. In that case, you could just do regular buttonholes because they don't get seen anyway, and you're not doing them through the main body of the coat. But I'm going to do bound buttonholes on mine because I've got beautiful buttons that I want to use and I want to show off. So if you want to know how to do all of this, because obviously this has been thread traced, I've interfaced where my 3 bound buttonholes are going to go. But they're the sew along we're doing right now. If you go to the bound buttonhole part 1, that is this step, if you want to see that in depth. I've interfaced my hem here on the front, my pocket, I've marked my dart, and then I've done a roll line here where the lapel is going to roll back on itself. Obviously the facing will be attached, but where it rolls back on itself. Mark your, I've marked my, oh my gosh, my switch point. What am I trying to say? The turn point. Oh my gosh, this is where the coat goes from the facing showing to the front of the coat showing. I can't think of what that's called. The word just totally went out of my head. Anyway, I will show you here in just a second how I put this roll line, fuse this roll line in. And I've just used fusible stay tape on that woven stay tape. And then, yeah, I've thread traced my bound buttonhole markings and my welt pocket markings. The bound buttonholes are on the right side when worn of the coat. And then on the left side, I just have my pocket marked. So, yeah, I'm making sure that that's all matching. Hold on. Yeah, it is. Okay. But that's what it looks like on the front. So I can see all that because that's important for me to be able to see these when I'm doing the bound buttonholes. And a welt pocket's basically a large bound buttonhole. So I'll just be following the instructions on that. So there you go. That is all the interfacing. Now this coat does not call for shoulder pads or sleeve heads. So it's not been drafted for shoulder pads, but I will probably, before I put the lining into this coat, try it on with a shoulder pad shoved in there to see if I like it better. And then I'll probably put a sleeve head in it. I don't know. I probably won't do the sleeve head unless I do the shoulder pad. So I will try it on and we'll do a comparison in the next part of this when I do the next part of this video, and we can look at the difference between just throwing a shoulder pad in there versus not. And again, instructions for all that are the same as in the sew along right now. So That should be pretty easy to follow, hopefully. Okay, so that's everything for my coat. Thank you for following along with me this week, and we will check back in next week to see. It will probably be finished. I'm assuming this will just be a 2-part video. So anyway, yeah, maybe not though. It may be 3 parts. I will have it made here soon, but yeah, maybe I'll do 3 parts on this. So anyway, there you have it, guys. Okay, and then the other thing that I said that I was going to show you is how I do the fusible roll line for the lapel. It's a kind of a cool trick, and it definitely helps the lapel roll and face outward. So when everything gets constructed, you just get a really professional soft roll there. So I will cut to that really quickly right now. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to do the roll line, this is different than what you've seen in the sew along, or you will see, because this coat has a revere collar or a notched lapel, however you want to refer to that. So you will see on the pattern that the roll line is marked, and I've marked it here in chalk on the back of my coat, and I do this to both sides. And I'm using, this is Woven Stay Tape by Sokeezy. I've got a link to it in my Amazon store if you're interested, or you can just search the Sokeezy. If, you know, you might be able to find it cheaper. This is Emma Seabrook. So anyway, so what you're going to do is you're going to find the sticky side of the tape. All right, so I'm going to basically measure this out, and I'm gonna, so this roll line is stopped right here at the seam allowance. The way it's drawn on the pattern, I'm actually going to go past that, but I am going to measure my tape from the top here, and I'm going to stop it right here where this line stops, so right before the seam allowance. And you're going to see why here in just a second, and I'm going to clip it. Also really hoping you're in view. I need to be taller, folks. Need to be taller. I don't normally film on my pressing station like this. Okay. All right. Once you have marked it, so now it's the length of the roll line. But what I'm going to do, because this is fusible, and notice that I am fusing this to the coat side, not the lapel side. So I'm on this side of the roll line, the coat side. This is the left side I'm working on. So I'm going to scooch this down into the seam allowance. To where I have about, I don't know, 1/2 of an inch, 3/4 of an inch excess there. Maybe a little less, maybe like 5/8 of an inch. And I'm going to first just press that point down, let it dry or cool just a bit. I'm going to kind of pick the coat up and move this to the edge. So see how it's picking the coat up a lot. And I'm going to fuse this side. Okay. Obviously, this has not been fused yet. So now, I'm just going to kind of finagle the coat. We want this edge of this tape to line up to that fold line. It's kind of disappearing a little bit with the steam. So you're basically easing in all of this excess. And once you get it how you like it, this works great with anything. This is a wool blend I'm working with, but it works great. Now we're just going to press it all into place all along. And what this does is by making that shorter and then easing in the fullness, when I'll get to a further step of the coat. When I steam this really well, it's just going to naturally fall to the right side, which is what you want it to do. Once the lapel, or once the facing is attached, obviously, you want that lapel, and there's the break point right here, but it'll fall nice and naturally there. That does get clipped into the seam allowance once that's all sewn together. So then this part of the coat stays flat, and then this part folds back along that fold line. So that is how you do some speed tailoring, basically, for your fold line there at your lapel. Okay, so basically with tailored coats, where you do 90, not 90, I don't know, 65% of the work is all within the tailoring that even happens before you even start to assemble the coat. So that includes all of the interfacings that you put in. Sometimes that means drafting them, which I did. You know, I traced off all of the interfacing pieces on here. You know, building in any kind of shape like with roll lines and that sort of thing. I didn't do any pad stitching or anything on this just because I don't know, I'm too impatient. I've done a coat with pad stitching before. It's a good thing to do, and I encourage anyone to really look into that, you know, the actual hand tailoring where you're doing everything. Actually, right now, Craftsy, you can get a year subscription for Craftsy for $2.50, I think like $2.50 for the year for the unlimited access to all the videos. And on there, Allison Smith has a wonderful 3-part video series. It's 3 separate classes on tailoring a coat, and she goes through 3 different ways of doing that. So she does a fusible way, a classic, like hand stitch, all the pad stitching all that way, and then a hybrid of the 2. It's really excellent. I learned a whole bunch from when I watched that when they first came out a couple years ago. I own those actually. But yes, definitely go check that out if you want to really delve into this more. Anyway, I also, okay, so that kind of covers that. So I also want to show you the difference though. I did decide again to add shoulder pads. I'm just adding like a 1/4 inch shoulder pad. They're not big shoulder pads, but I'm going to cut now and show you the difference in that. All right, so I'm playing around. I've got the main body of the coat kind of done. Kind of. But this coat was not drafted for a shoulder pad. It doesn't have you put a shoulder pad in. I've been super impressed with the construction of this coat though so far, other than that part, which I find a little bit weird, because this is not supposed to be a drop shoulder jacket, but there's no mention of a shoulder pad in there, I don't think. Maybe I haven't gotten to that part of the instructions. But anyway, there was no list of shoulder pads on the notions at the front, top of the pattern. So I have stuck, and it's a very thin, I'll show you the shoulder pad in a minute, but you can totally tell this I have put a small shoulder pad in, this nothing, and just the difference. Look how much higher that shoulder sits. Now I'm also going to put a sleeve head in, which is gonna, because you see how this sleeve is like collapsing. It's kind of hard to tell in the print, but kind of collapsing on itself there. It just doesn't have that pretty sleeve capness. my shoulder pad's also not all the way out to the edge there. There we go. There it is. But I am going to put a sleeve head in there too, which I'm not going to show you guys how to do on this coat because it's the same as what I did with the sew-along coat. So I don't think we're there yet. Maybe that's this week. Maybe that's Sunday, maybe? I don't know. Still need to edit those. They've all been filmed though. But look at the difference. So I'm definitely going to put a sleeve head and a shoulder pad into this coat, which will be my next steps before I put in the lining. But that's all. I'm going to stop here for today, and I'll show you what they look like once I have attached both the shoulder head, yes, the sleeve head and the shoulder pad into the jacket. But look, this is all that I'm putting in there. This is all the thicker that is. It's like a 1/4 inch, because I think my other ones are thicker and I think they're 3/8 of an inch. So it's a pretty thin shoulder pad that I'm sticking in there. So that's just the difference, yeah, like look at the difference. It just makes it sit better on your shoulders. I know that we all got scared with shoulder pads in the 80s, but I think any tailored coat just really, really needs them. So there's my PSA for the day. All right. Okay, as you can see, a huge difference in the shoulder pad or not. It just looks so much more tailored and just so much more crisp and sharp. And once I put a sleeve head in there, that sleeve's not going to collapse on itself, and it's really going to hold its shape nicely. I just think it's very, very worth it. So you guys will be able to see that next week. Next week. So next Friday, I will show you talk you through a few things as I come across them. There's mitered corners on the vent of this jacket that are just gorgeous. The instructions again take you through that really, really easily. But I'll actually show you up close. I will sew, up close the collar, the revere in the collar, and how I get that to be as precise as I can, because I think that can be tricky for a lot of people, myself included. So I will show you that up close next week, but if there's anything else that you can think of that you'd like to see, if I remember, because I also, I'll show you how I hand stitch my upper collar and under collar together when I'm putting the lining in. That's different from the sew along. And I think that's probably it, because I bagged the lining in this, I'm pretty sure. I haven't even cut my lining out, to be honest, quite yet, just the pockets. So yeah. Oh, that's the other thing. I chose the welt pockets on this coat instead of the patch pockets, but you probably have already seen that. There's two options. Anyway, and this is the longer length. I've done the longer length, and the only alterations I've made are I shortened the sleeve 1.5 inches. I've not touched the body of the coat at all. Oh, but also, this is important information, I decided to make a size, I needed a size 44 for my bust, but my shoulders are so much smaller. So I picked the size for my upper bust, which is 36 inches, and that corresponded to the size 40, I believe. So I traced the size 40 through the shoulders and through all, the neck and the front of the coat. All the sizes kind of blend together. But then at the arm's eye, I graded from a size 40 at the shoulder point. I used the size 44 arm's eye curve, and you guys have seen me do that before on other sew-alongs, but I put it at the end of the size 40 shoulder, and then I swing it out until it hits the 44, size 44 side seam. So it just changes the arm. It's the same curve, but it changes the orientation just a little bit. So I did do that. So I graded from a 40 to a 44 through the arm's eye, and then everything else is the size 44. So the pocket placements are the size 44, the sleeves are the size 44. Yeah, and the length is the size 44, I guess. Well, kind of, because I cut the 40 at the shoulder, so that does shorten it a little bit up there. But anyway, yes, that's what I did as far as alterations are concerned. So I think that is it for this week. If you have any questions on the coat, definitely pop it down below. I really am enjoying this pattern, though. I'm very excited because I'm making this pattern again with the add-on collar later in my coats, my coat list, to make it look like a Banana Republic, J. Crew jacket coat, and so I'm excited to sew it again because so far I'm having a really fun time doing that. I think I'm doing a zipper though into the orange coat, I believe. I think that's what the add-on pattern does, and I think that's what the coat that I'm copying did as well. So anyway, guys, that is all I have for today. Again, leave questions that you have. Sunday we've got part 4 or 5, I can't remember now where we are, of the sew-along for the B6385 sew-along. And again, even if you're not sewing along with that coat, I'm showing a lot of tips and tricks that they run the gamut for all coats, basically. And then Tuesday, I'm very hopeful I'll be able to share with you my fabric haul and pattern haul and button haul that I made with the after Christmas sales with some Christmas money that I received. So yeah, 2 separate fabric stores, a big 4 pattern haul, and then because they had that sale, and then I got some buttons from Style Maker Fabrics. So yeah, I'll be sharing that with you guys on Tuesday. All right, that's all I have for today. I hope you guys get some sewing in this weekend and have a nice relaxing January weekend. Take care and stay safe, and I'll see you guys on Sunday.